Hewison here, president of INO.com and co-creator of MarketClub with your video market update for Friday, the 15th of February. You know, now it's getting personal. Yeah, we're going to be talking about the Carl Ichan, Bill Ackman personal feud, which is very unusual. We'll be talking about that in more detail, looking at the stock as well. And also we're talking about gold. What's going on with that market? That used to be such an important market, but now it's just evaporating to a 6-month low today, but we'll go into that. So let's go right to our portfolio. And it's Friday. Yep, Friday. So let's start with Herbalife. That seems to be the #1 talking point. And here's what happened. We talked about this yesterday, and we said at the time that the big trend in this market was down. The major trend was down. After the close yesterday, Carl Ichan came in and purchased, I think it was, I want to say 14 million shares, and that's a lot of shares. I get all my zeros in there. 14 million shares, and that gave him approximately a 13% control of this company that he wants to take private. Now on the other side of the coin is Bill Ackman, who is short this market. He's made no apology. He thinks this is a crappy market. It's a pyramid scheme. Herbalife, their products are no better than the others. That's to be debated, but the reality is he thinks it's just a pyramid scheme. Now, so here you have two hedge fund managers. I've never seen this happen before. Two hedge fund managers that, one, hate each other, and two, have really bet, not the farm, but they've certainly bet a lot of money on these markets going their way. Now, technically speaking, we're still actually looking at this market going lower. We're short from 35.56. We mentioned this yesterday, and also 57.33. So again, here's our signal quite some time ago on Herbalife. Now the big thing to us is, and this is what's going to shake people's shoes, is if we go over this level right here, which is around about the 46.50 level. So 46.50. Just remember that number. If we go through there, the question is Ackman going to just close up shop, or is he going to sell more? And I would tend to want to go with the trends, but if we go through there, that'll put us in a neutral position on this market, which is probably the place to be. This is trading like this should never get personal, and this is what's gotten between Ichan and Pershing Square Capital, which is Bill Ackman's thing. So reality, here it is, a big move up today, and obviously that happened. See that little action yesterday? Boom, it came up, went over the parabolic. This is the little line right here, and that signals today's move. We're now in an overbought condition. If you remember, we were oversold just a few days ago, and now we're overbought. So the top of this particular Donchian channel should be a stopper, and it should also stop around this level here. So we'll see how that plays out next week, but this is going to be like having a soap opera play out in front of you. It's going to be pretty amazing. So let's see what happens, and let's go to our next market. So let me just clear the screen off and take a look at the next market. So here we are. We're looking at a market, Herbalife. Let's go to crude oil. Crude oil was a big mover today. We see the yellow box right here. That's indicating you should be out of this market, and you should be out of this market today at the 97.20 level. It's 96.07 right now. So again, you should be out of this market at 97.20. So let's go to the chart and take a look. So let's put our daily in. Now remember, we trade this usually with our daily and weekly. Weekly for trend and daily for timing. So if you're an intermediate term trader, short-term trader, you should be using these two right here. So even though the monthly is still positive and still looking good, and the weekly is still positive, the daily, you should be out of it if you're short-term or an intermediate-term trader. So here we are. We've had the big move down. You can see the price there, 97.20. The market's currently trading 96.07. And if we look at this on a weekly basis, let's just take a look on the weekly, you can see this is the second week we've had down. Also, it will confirm last week's action, which was somewhat of a negative engulfing line. So we may see more downside pressure in this market. So let's just take that off. But you see the trend is it's a pretty good situation. The trend continues higher. pulling back is not a bad thing at this point in time, but you should be out if you're a short-term trader. So let's move on to our next market. This is gold, another big move today. Remember, we talked about the gold market. Let's just scope this out a little further. This is the weekly, so it's down dramatically for the week. We're down some almost 3.5% for the week, which is a big, big move in gold. We've just jumped into the really oversold column, but let's just scope this out, and let's just go back to a daily chart. And as you can see, the daily chart right here is, let's scope this out even further. And you can see we're in new low territory. And if you just put this on a close-only basis, which we can do very easily, just click there. You can see we're in new low territory, way out of the bands. And you can see we're just beginning to turn up on the daily. But the reality is this is a really big move on the downside. A lot of liquidation today. Let me just throw in a Fibonacci and see where we are in the Fibonacci from the highs here to the lows. So I would say around, looks like the 1630 level is about a 61.8% pullback. We're way below that. So I think right now you want to maybe disregard this particular measurement, this tool, Fibonacci tool, and just go with the flow here. So there's the weekly kicked in. It looks as though on the daily and the weekly and the monthly, everything's negative. Remember, we've had this negative situation on the monthly since this date here. Let me just put that on there. We've had been negative on the monthly since December 18th, and it's really kind of falling into fruition right now. So I think there's a lot more repair work to be done. I think around the 1600 level is going to be a big number. We're usually a big number to hold on to, but a lot of liquidation has taken place. The only person that's still in this is Paulson, who has a big position in the spiders, the ETF spider for gold, and whether he holds on to it, I don't know. That's going to be remains to be seen. But we're seeing some big bets going wrong for some of these big hedge funds. So let's see how that plays out. But let's go on to our next market. This is the euro dollar, the euro versus the dollar rather. And you can see we're still in this confines of a very nice bull trend. Obviously today's action was a little bit negative sort of earlier, but it sort of bounced back. So generally speaking, the trend continues to be positive longer term. We're in an oversold condition. So this is what I would watch primarily on this market. And that's probably right here. So this level right here. So we come back up here and go over this level. I think that will illustrate just that this market's going to take another climb up and move up to these levels. At the bottom of the Donchian trade channel should be support, and but you also below the parabolic, and you also have mixed signals on this market. For example, the daily is down right here. That's down, and you have the weekly and the monthly heading higher. So kind of a mixed signals there, and I think that's the thing to look at. So generally speaking, still bullish on this market, bearish on the US dollar. So let's see how that plays out. Let's clear the screen and go to our next market. We're going to be looking also today, we're going to be looking at our 52-week rule and how you can find 52-week highs and lows using our smart scan technology. So let's go on to the S&P 500, which is going to be in its 7th week higher. It's clinging to this upside line. Let's get just a 6-month chart. It'll give it. See how it's clinging to this chart? And it's really sort of climbing a wall of worry. A lot of people been saying this market's going to go lower. Well, it hasn't happened yet. Not to say it can't happen. But if you look at this on a weekly basis, we've just had 7 weeks in a row where the market's gone higher. Now, it would not be unusual for this market to pull back. 1495 is really the key level for us. And by that, I mean, let's just go back to a daily chart, for example. So it's just easy to do with MarketClub. So the big level for us on MarketClub will be this level right here. Let me just get my illustrator on. Is right here. If the market goes below this 1495, that will put us neutral on this market. So we'll see how that plays out. But generally speaking, this is the 7th week in a row we've been higher. So sometimes markets get tired. Lots of people have been calling for this market to have a break since this level right here. It hasn't happened. So let's the market decide what it wants to do next week. We've got sequestration coming up soon. Lots going on. So I think that you have to be a little bit careful and you may want to use closer stops. So let's go to our next market, which is going to be the Dow. And then we'll go on to the finding those 52-week highs. So here's the Dow coming up, much the same picture there. It's flattening out a little bit, just a little bit of a deviation here on negative divergence here. But generally speaking, it still looks like the trend is higher. So moving on to the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ has always been suspect in my book because we're so close to these highs back, these September highs. So I would not be surprised to see this market sort of falter a little bit. If you remember, we were recommending being long the S&P, short the NASDAQ, and on basically a spread basis. That's worked out very well. So here's our monthly that kicked in on the 1st of February at 3,164. So we're a little bit higher today, so it's still looking good. So anyway, let's go back, and we've covered all the markets we want to cover. Herbalife is the one that's going to be fun to watch next week. But let's look at our market scans. So this is what we're talking about. So you want to look at 52-week highs. Click here, and you'll see it'll come up. And it's showing us we have 451 charts, but I want to scan this even further, and this is how we do this. So I want to look at equities right here. I want to see this is bar charts, and I also want to see the last price that is less than, let's say, less than $20. Okay, so I don't want to. I want to basically get some pretty inexpensive stocks, and I want to see the volume greater than 22 million, and I want to see exchange, just US exchanges, because I'm based here in the US exchange. If you were in Australia or Canada, you would obviously search on these two elements right here. So let's go back here and just say scan. So we have 451 right now, and we scan this and sticking it down to 13, which is much more manageable. Now I can view this also as a symbol list, line chart, bar charts, or candle charts. I'm just going to simple line chart, but let's take a look at these markets right now. So scanning down, in theory, is very simple. You want to be in a market where it's making new highs that are going to close close to the highs for the week, and then you would take profits on Tuesday morning on the opening. The idea is the momentum will carry through on Monday and then peak out on Tuesday. So let's see how this looks. I'm going to, it's interesting. I was born in Newcastle upon Tyne, so maybe this is the one I would like to take for the weekend if it closes higher. So, and by higher, I mean higher to the close to the high of the day and for the week. So that's the other thing to look at. So Ericsson Telephone looks good. Interpublic group of companies looks good. So again, I'll let you choose them. I'm not going to show, but what you may want to do is just pick some of these out, follow them, and on Monday and Tuesday, see how they do. I think that will be an interesting experiment for you. But hey, this is a really simple rule. The person who taught me this made a lot of money. I've done very well with this myself, and you may want to check it out. But you can do it very simply using MarketClub's 52-week high rule. So, and that's it for now. We'll be back next week. We'll see how the Ackman Ichan feud continues. We'll see if gold follows through next week. And of course, sequestration is just around the corner. We'll be talking about that next week. Have a great trading day, everyone, and I'll see you next week, and have a great weekend.